Back to an interesting Monday. Yep, we got a brief one today, but we want to hit it hard. And before I do it, I'll say, hey, both me and Mike Farrell have really enjoyed doing these promos for the players that we work with, and we've really excited because we've gotten some really good ones that are really doing some really good things that are starting to emerge. myfootballcamps.com/D1. Make sure you check it out. Uh, we really, I mean, we have 15 plus guys in the pipeline that we're doing stuff for, and it's great. I mean, we saw this weekend one of the coolest things. Well, first of all, Bryce Enlow had a great game this weekend. I saw,
Yep.
and that was he just sent me over the news. I just done a video on him, but he just sent me over his stuff from this weekend. He had a great weekend. And then I saw
his brother has been killing it too at Freehold Township. His younger brother, 2025 Chase, as a running back, he's been awesome too.
Yeah, he's been crushing it. And then Jaffe had a wild ending with knocking off one of the top teams in Florida. His high school, he had a big catch on their last drive, and then kicked a field goal. A bomb field goal. I got to share that with you because his father shared it with me to win the game, which I was like, I didn't know he was a kicker.
How far is a bomb?
I think it was 40 plus.
Really?
Yes, because he's the kickoff guy for them, which I didn't know, but he's the kickoff guy. But they have a very good extra point. And I'm going to look it up just to confirm this.
Todd Blackledge said something this weekend, which I found very interesting. He said, I would scholarship a guy who can kick it in the end zone every time. Like, I would give that guy a full scholarship. And as long as I know he can reach the end zone every time, to just eliminate the return game, eliminate any penalties, any issues, because you don't want your special team guys. You can get hurt. Kickoff itself, if you get a touchback every time, that's what you want. So if you got a leg, and you're a defensive back or a wide receiver, it's always good to be able to do things.
Well, I guess they have the fathers. They have a real kicker that kicks like the extra points. Okay, like a guy's a kicker, but he obviously he's such a good athlete. He's got such a great leg. He kicks it's first time ever kicking a field goal. Oh, okay. It was a 30-yard field goal. So he had a 45-yard completion to get them down to I guess where they could kick the field goal, and then he kicked a 30-yard field goal to win the game. 23-21. Kid's interesting athlete, huh? Very interesting.
Ooh, guess what? Not to interrupt this, but Matt Rule just got fired.
Whoa! Just now?
Yeah, just now. Wow. Okay, so again. I'll talk about Matt Rule in a second. The promo is myfootballcamps.com/D1. I caught up on a ton of them this weekend. It's just fun to see these guys develop, especially, as quarterbacks develop their arm strength and their ability in the pocket. But you also see additional speed, for the skill position guys. And then the interior guys like Hartman, and TK George, White Rhino, versatile guys that you could get on your roster. If they don't work out at a defensive tackle, they could work out at offensive guard. Just big guys who are physical with great work ethics and stuff like that. So myfootballcamps.com/D1. DM us too. I'm at MFarrell Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and you're at Coach Schumann on those platforms. So Matt Rule, the reason I think this is exciting and interesting, we knew he was going to be fired eventually at Carolina. He's been a colossal failure. He's going to be intriguingly interested. Wisconsin, Nebraska, Georgia Tech.
Yep.
I wouldn't say Arizona State. He's a Penn State guy who coached at Temple, fish out of water at Baylor, and did an amazing job there. But those jobs open. Like the job he did at Baylor is arguably. Everybody talks about Lance Leipold's job at Kansas, and that's awesome. And Sam Pittman at Arkansas, that's awesome. But what he walked into at Baylor was unlike anything I've seen. You had Penn State and Bill O'Brien and all the sanctions and all that stuff, and that was rare and unseen as well. But Baylor was on the precipice of just losing its football program. I mean, the sexual harassment and all of those things Art Briles let slide. Rule had to go in there as a Jersey guy with a Jersey staff. Fran Brown was on that staff, Mike Saravo. These are all Northeast guys. Recruit at Baylor, save Baylor, make Baylor good, which he did. I think they went 11-1 one of his years.
Yep.
And they allowed kids to transfer without penalty before the portal. They allowed that entire recruiting class that Briles had put together was allowed to just transfer. Like 6 of them went to Texas without penalty. They were let out of their letters of intent. It was so bad. And the job he did there was just unbelievably fascinating. So if I'm a Nebraska, I look at that. We don't have those issues, but man, we need a rebuild. I look at Matt Rule for sure, and he might be interested in the job.
I agree. He's shown that he can win in a situation that has nothing to do with him regionally, which I thought was the most impressive thing, because most of these guys are, other than a handful of guys, are very good within a certain region or within a certain fit for a certain place, and they do well there, and they go somewhere else, they struggle a lot of times. He shown that going right, what you said, from the Northeast, from being a Temple, being a Jersey guy, being a Northeast guy, and that staff, and going into Baylor, which is a Texas school. I mean, it really is a Texas school, right? And obviously not just recruited, but coached those guys up, got them to believe, and won a ton of games, and really set up what Aranda has now, right? So it really worked out really good for him. And I have to say, it was pro that showing a lot of times that this college to pro thing is not as easy as everyone wants it to be. It's just you're a great college coach, and you go over to the pros, and that's just a whole different ball wax. And it may not even have anything to do with your coaching ability. It may just have to do with a lot of other factors in management, who you do deals with, ownership. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it has to do with how you relate to players. Sometimes it has to do with what your personnel ends up being for that time you're there. And so I think he'll be a great steal at one of these programs. And I'll tell you, thinking of Nebraska, because I hear Nebraska, I always think Oklahoma. And you might know where I'm going with this. Whoa. I mean, I could not believe, first of all, Ewers diced them up, but Oklahoma was just, I mean, wow. I mean, I don't know. There's no words to describe that, right?
Well, here's the funny thing too is, all the hype about Arch Manning being the number 1 player in the country, Arch Manning being the perfect prospect. I think on 3 and 24/7 have him as the perfect prospect, and there's only been like 2 of those. He cannot hold Quinn Ewers' jock. Just can't as a quarterback. He's got skills. He's got some mobility. He's got the arm. He's got the knowledge. He's got the smarts. He's a 4-star kid for sure. But again, I'm always quoted 3-star kid if you didn't know who he was, which, there's a border there between a high 3 and a 4. Quinn Ewers is that dude. He's legit. He's Matthew Stafford. He's just special. And the funny thing about this is, Ewers has got another year there. And he's only, prior to this game, he threw 36 passes this season. So I came out with my updated top 50 quarterback list. I didn't have him on there because he only threw 36 passes. He got injured against Alabama. Next time I do it, he's going to be on there, obviously, because he was on my preseason one. He carved him up, like you said. He is just phenomenal arm talent with vision, with the feel for the game itself. Will Levis has as good an arm as Quinn Ewers at Kentucky, but he makes mistakes. There's guys out there with golden arms that people fall in love with that will force the ball and cause you some problems, and he's not one of them. I'm glad he's living up to the hype. Oklahoma's in big trouble, and this is the one thing. I know Oklahoma fans. I know some friends of mine are Oklahoma fans, and I told them, I said, again, I'll reiterate this. two coaching jobs that are impossible moving forward. Currently, Nick Saban's job is impossible, but that's another story. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, and they had a good win over BYU, but he's never going to live up to what Brian Kelly did. He's not going to go to the national championship and the playoff twice. He's just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And Brent Venables at Oklahoma, he's not going to take that team to the playoffs 3 out of 5 years. And Oklahoma fans got a little bit spoiled. We make the playoffs, but we lose. Yeah, well, you're playing Georgia and Alabama and some really, really good football teams. You're going to lose some, but getting there is part of it. And now they're not going to get there. Now they're seeing, and this is what I talked about last week when Paul Chris got fired for Jim Leonard. Be careful. Be very careful. Jim Leonard had a great first game. He's sort of in this tryout period to see if he's the next coach.
He's got a bubble.
Yeah, but be very careful. Don't go all in on a guy who's been a coordinator all his life, who doesn't know how to run a program, because now we're seeing how difficult it is to do that. Take an established head coach. That's why Nebraska, listen, they're interested in Jim Leonard. And part of the reason they got rid of Chris was, to give Jim Leonard this shot. Go with Matt Rule. Matt Rule started at Temple 2-10. You remember how bad Temple was when he took him over. Okay. 6-6, 10-4, 10-3 after that. Baylor, 1-11. No scholarship players, really. They had maybe 60, 50 something. 7-6 next year, 11-3 following year. They go to the Sugar Bowl. The dude knows what to do. And when you mention NFL, how many coaches have gone from college to the NFL and been successful? We've seen the failures. Nick Saban, one of them. Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer, now Matt Rule. They take the job because it's so much money. He's got $85 million of guaranteed money, I believe. Right. So he's good to go. But there are college coaches and there's pro coaches, and there's a huge difference. And Matt Rule is a guy who develops young guys. He coaches them up. He's good at finding talent that is overlooked. He's good at everything about college football. So that's why him being on the if I'm Nebraska, I call him today, and I say, you want this job? It's yours. That's what I would do. But they're not going to do that. But Matt Rule being available, he's going to come back to college football, and that's going to be great for college football.
Oh, I agree. I mean, to me, the NFL is a puzzle, is always a puzzle that you're putting things together, whereas college football is some level of building blocks, and it's kind of different and how you put the building blocks together. But NFL is a puzzle every year that you got to put together. Every year you got to put together a puzzle, and you got to figure out, what do I have here? What do I have here? What money do I have available? So it's a totally different game. That's not even talking about the personality differences with pro players. But I don't think that's an issue. Definitely don't think for Matt Rule that's never shown to be an issue. I just think the puzzle is a difficult thing.
Well, personality, though. I mean, you come from college, okay, and there's a lot of guys who are professionals in the locker room that will turn their nose up at that and say, who's this guy?
That makes sense.
You know, and they brought Joe Brady in there. Of course, Joe Brady, the guy giving credit for Joe Burrow, and who's younger than most of the players on the football team. So a lack of respect can fall into place, especially if you're dealing with egos and such. The thing that hurt, I think, Matt Rule the most in his Carolina tenure was the fact that Luke Kuechly retired right when he took over. And it wasn't because of Matt Rule. It was because of, potential CTE, brain concussion. Luke Kuechly didn't want to be around any longer, but he was the leader and heart and soul of that football team, heart and soul. And he was the one who would have got these guys in the locker room saying, listen, I believe in this guy. We should believe in this guy, blah, 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 blah. And without that voice, I think sometimes a coach can get disrespected coming in from college. That's great what you did at Baylor. Whoop-de-doo, this is the pros. And these are all millionaires, and these are guys that are just going to slough you off. And Joe Brady had to be, put out to pasture immediately, first season, because he wasn't the good enough coordinator. And I think it was because of a lack of respect. So personality, Matt Rule's, if you've ever met him.
Where he should be now, which is he's the quarterback's coach at Buffalo, I think.
Yeah.
He really should be starting that climb. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Joe Burrow he skipped a couple rungs because of Joe Burrow.
Rungs really quick
because he was mentioned as the head coach at Miami, head football coach at Miami, head football coach at Tennessee. Before they settled on Heupel, before they settled on Cristobal. No, he wasn't ready for any of that stuff. But I will tell you this, Matt Rule's personality wise, he's an okay guy. He's a straight shooter. He's not a jerk. A lot of guys up in the Northeast are jerks. He's not. They are. Listen. Okay, Randy Edsel. I
like Matt Rule a lot. I know him. I like him.
Randy Edsel, jerk.
I like Randy. Now, I think I like jerks, but
how do you like Randy Edsel? How's that possible?
I know him a little differently, I guess. Like I know him. I know Rule differently.
Okay, I'm going to give you a few other names. Ready?
Give me some other names.
Well, Greg Schiano is a jerk.
I know Greg two ways. Like I think I might have told you, I coached this kid, Steve Boharners, who ended up being their captain and everything. And so I know him the first round, which was, I guess I had players that, so he was very kind to me. Second round, I always liked Greg, but I met him at a coach's, like I think when he first took over, I shook his hand. He looked at me. He didn't know me from a hole in the wall. I had met him I won't say 30 times. I met him like 10, 15 times. I'm like, you know what? I realized that that was all because we had a recruit. So
it's not who they are personally to me and you. That's not how I gauge this.
Like, I don't know him well enough to know.
Well, Randy Edsel was. Randy Edsel was.
I love him. The people that I know and respect love him. I don't know.
Okay, Randy Edsel was a dick to me, so that's personal. Greg Schiano he was never a dick to me, Greg Schiano. But I know a coach, okay, and I won't name his name, who coached at UConn and then Rutgers. So he went from Randy Edsel to Greg Schiano. Or no, he went from Rutgers to UConn. So he went from Greg Schiano to Randy Edsel. And he said that working for Greg Schiano was the worst experience of his entire life until he worked for Randy Edsel. And this is a nice guy. This is a guy that, I used to have beers with and see on the road. He ended up as a assistant coach at a massive Power 5 school. And then oddly enough, just fell from Power 5 down to like D2. It was just so weird how things happen. But he worked for those two guys. And he said they're both just abhorrent human beings. Okay, so Steve Adazio, an awful person, right? BC.
I don't know Steve Adazio well. I only know him from. So you remember he was the head coach at Cheshire?
Yeah.
High school. When we were, you were probably out of college, but I was in college. We had guys from Cheshire. He had a powerhouse. We had a lot of guys at UConn from Cheshire, and the kids who played for him from his high school loved him. But I've met Adazio a few times. I don't really have an opinion just because he comes across like
a gym teacher.
What?
Rah-rah? He's a gym teacher. That's what he is.
Yeah. He comes across like an unfriendly gym teacher from back in the.
Yeah, get up that rope, climb that rope.
Yes, right.
That kind of.
That's how he comes.
Ready?
Now, I mean, that's how he is. And
okay.
It's funny because the guys who play from high school wise, and high school's so different, right? Because if you like your high school coach, like it doesn't matter. He could be the meanest guy on the planet. And if you play for him and won championships, you love him. Like that's just how it is. You know what I mean? High school is so different.
Horrible person.
That's funny. Who else?
Tom Coughlin, horrible human being.
I don't know Tom Coughlin.
Horrible human being. Al Groh, horrible human being.
Really? I don't know Al Groh.
New York City dude. Bob Diaco.
Bob Diaco, I have a little experience with.
Horrible.
Nice to me personally. I don't like him as a coach. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he was overrated. Who?
Paul Pasqualoni.
Wouldn't know. I've met him 9,000 times. He actually recruited me. I met him as a recruit a million times. One of his main guys he just passed away, was one of my favorite guys in the world. But I was not a Pasqualoni fan at all. But who's the guy who used to be his line coach? He was a great guy.
Oh, my God. You like that guy?
I loved him. I
Oh.
loved him.
What did it, Azanaro?
I passed away. Oh gosh.
Oh, okay. No, you're talking about the guy who passed away. So I thought you were talking about Azanaro.
No, he was with him everywhere. As they got older, they might have separated a little bit. I can't believe I forgot his name. He was a great line. Used to be I can't
Nah.
remember.
Well, Jerry Azanaro was a Brooklyn guy too. He was a horrible person. Now, again, I'll give you some nice guys if you want. Billy McGovern, defensive coordinator at
Great guy.
UCLA.
Great guy.
Great human being. Ryan Day, okay, played up
Excellent
at UNH for Chip Kelly. A great human being. Mike Saravo, he's at Carolina now. He's from Providence. He was at BC, Temple, and then Baylor with Rule. Great human being. There's a lot of great guys.
Hafley's a great human being.
Hafley, great guy. And Hafley's a great example as well. He was at Pitt and Rutgers, Northeast.
Great guy.
He knows the Hafley, great guy. And then some of the other guys, Spaziani was a great guy. He just wasn't good at BC. Flood's a nice guy.
Flood's a great guy. Great.
Yeah. So
give you the shirt off his back.
Yeah. So there's good guys, but there's just generally a lot more dicks up here. And Matt Rule is not that. He's not.
No, I like Matt Rule.
No, he's an okay guy. I think he's a good hire. I think he would be a great hire there. So real quick, as we move towards this weekend, first of all, let's talk about the Deion thing.
Yeah.
I think this is contrived, and I'm not saying contrived on purpose for attention. I think it's contrived before. So Eddie Robinson Jr., obviously the son of the great Eddie Robinson at Grambling, didn't want to have the bro hug with Deion Sanders after the game. They shook hands. Deion Sanders, to go back, Jackson State beat his team, and they shook at midfield. But Eddie Robinson Jr. was upset that Deion didn't come out to the 50-yard line. Because if you go to any college football game ever, at one point in time, the two head coaches are out on the 50, and they're just, yucking it up, arms folded, saying this, that, and the other to each other, or at least shaking hands and greeting each other. And Deion got there late, he said, and wasn't able to do that. But Eddie Robinson Jr. said he wasn't there late enough. I mean, he went up down the sidelines and went through our warm-ups. He could have come out to the 50 and said hi. He didn't do it. I didn't like that. It didn't sit well with me. So I'll shake your hand as a professional, but I'm not giving you bro hug. And then Deion's like, whoa, I don't understand. And then there's this whole, you're not SWAC, I'm SWAC. And it's just a pettiness. So what I've got here is I've got this is my head, Eddie Robinson Jr. just a little bit butthurt that Deion is the face of the SWAC when Eddie Robinson Jr. probably should be, based on his father's tremendous legacy. And Deion just loves to hear himself talk. And he loves anything that's any sort of controversial thing that he can talk about. That's my take on it.
I have almost a similar take. I feel like Eddie, if you didn't want to shake his hand, you shouldn't have gone out to the middle of the field. So if you didn't want to shake his hand and you wanted to be like, I don't like how Deion act, but you went out to the middle of the field, okay? And it wasn't like he said anything to Deion Sanders, but basically, like, he went out there to shake the hand. The idea is that he's going to shake the hand. If he didn't want to shake his hand, he shouldn't have gone out there. And the bottom line is he didn't want to give him a bro hug because he got his ass whooped. I mean, I hate to say it any other way, but, like, listen, does he have to like how Deion does it? Does it bother him? I'm sure it does. I'm sure the fact that Deion's able to get recruits he can never get or hope to get is something that bothers him. Okay. And I could understand that. The SWAC stinks. Okay. Deion Sanders. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The SWAC stinks. Deion Sanders has elevated the SWAC at a level that's probably helped its recruiting other places, okay, just like having Eddie George probably does and all the kind of things, okay, that definitely helps it. But before he stepped there, the SWAC was terrible, okay? It's FCS in name only, and now he is elevated where some of those teams may be actually. I mean, his team definitely is, but where they may be FCS level, right? So I think it's jealousy to me, a lot of jealousy, and then I'll give you the one flip side on this. And it's because of his name that he's jealous, right? I'm Eddie Robinson Jr. Well, you ain't Eddie Robinson. I'm
Right.
sorry. It's just like that's just how it is. Now, maybe one day he becomes Eddie Robinson, okay? Like his father was. I'm not saying that won't happen. He's a young guy. But right now he's not. That bothers him. The one thing I think that Deion does do, and I don't know if he does it on purpose, how he said he always goes around the field like he always did that back in the day. My thing is like, listen, you're not a player anymore. You are a coach. There are certain things as a coach that other coaches will bother them. If you're looking to bother them, these are things that will bother them. So I can't imagine Deion, as smart as he is, doesn't know that those things would annoy another coach, right? That's the thing, right? Don't you agree
Deion,
with that?
no, I like Deion.
I think he's great.
I met him a couple times. He follows me on Twitter. I DM with him every once in a while, just say hi, and
He's great.
He'll comment on some stuff. And he thinks his son's a really good quarterback. His son's not a really good quarterback, but he thought all of his kids were really good football players, and they're not. And that's life. I mean, they're good.
They're not really
good. They're not great, and they're certainly not Deion. So he's a dad first, and he's the GOAT, the primetime guy, second. And that's going to come out. I think he's very self-aware of what he does and what he knows. Like, he's brought attention to the SWAC. As you said, the SWAC sucks. It still sucks. It's not good football. People ask me all the time when you do these top 50 lists, well, where are the SWAC guys? Well, they're not there because none of them are good. Well, look at the historic players in the SWAC and Doug Williams and all that. Yeah, okay. Like, there was one good SWAC player every other year, and a few of them turned out to be legendary football players. Jerry Rice, great, but okay.
And there still are everyone. You could have individuals. Absolutely.
Yeah, right, but overall, as a roster, those rosters are horrible. And it's just not good football, and they're not going to be lumped in with the Group of Five or the Power Five ever. For me, I don't think there's anybody good enough. Now, they could go on to be pros, and really surprise people. But right now, no. But he's elevated the SWAC. He knows what he's doing. He brings attention to the SWAC on a weekly basis, which is great. Whether it's somebody saying he bought Travis Hunter, he loves to, slap back at that, or whether it's somebody talking about he's going to be the next coach of Florida State, or, now that's calmed down a little bit, but Auburn, Georgia Tech, anything he could do for attention wise. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, they were just down at HBCU week, and they wouldn't do that without Deion. So he's great for it. But he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And maybe he doesn't like Eddie Robinson Jr. for some reason. But you know what? It's not like he ran up the score. I mean, they won 26-12. It probably could have been a lot worse.
He complained about him throwing a hitch and go. And then, I mean, listen, to me, like, when I hear those things at FCS, or like maybe at Division III, you could kind of, gentleman's agreement, don't do this, you're kicking my butt type of thing. Dude, FCS are better. You have scholarship players. Why are you complaining? Okay, this is different than, like, I don't know, an FCS school going and playing at Alabama, right? And you're going to kick their butt no matter what. And if you're throwing, you're up by 50. But, like, these are, Jackson State has a better roster, and he's got obviously ex-pros coach. He's got some really great things there. But isn't it still your job? And I remember this, like, Bobby you remember the old story when Lou Holtz played Bobby Bowden back in the day. One was at William & Mary, and Bobby Bowden, I think at the time, was at West Virginia, and Lou Holtz got killed by Bobby Bowden, and Lou Holtz was mad. He comes up and he's like, you ran the score up on me. He's like, it's your job to stop me, not my job. That's what he said to him, Bobby Bowden. And Lou Holtz said that he always remembered that because of the fact that he always thought there was like this thing when you're at a high level that, and he's like, we all have scholarship players and it's your job to stop me. And you know what? You lose, you go back home. Some guys abide by these gentleman agreements. Some guys don't. But the truth is they don't have to. And that's I hate when guys get so consumed with that, right? If he was kicking onside kicks up 56-0, all right. I mean, obviously, we could say that's a little bit ridiculous.
Well, right? Didn't Day just do that? I mean, it wasn't an onside kick, but he faked a punt late in the game. Was against Rutgers.
I don't know. I don't remember.
It was against Rutgers. It was,
Okay.
yeah. It was. It wasn't this past weekend. It was weekend before. He faked a punt. They were up like 40 points. Greg Schiano got in his face about it. They yelled about it, and then after the game, they shook hands and everything was fine. And Day and Schiano coached the same at Ohio State together. They've known each other for a long time. It's just the way it is. You got to work on things when you got to work on things. The funny part about college football is you get so limited practice time, and practice time is you can't hit really. I think it's so limited game time. I mean, there's 12 football games a year, not including, conference championships and bowl games. And there's just not enough minutes to develop things you want to develop. So that fake punt against Rutgers was not meaningful. Could be something they see or fix or make better against Michigan in a huge game that determines the Big Ten. So I'm all for whatever. Run it up. Don't run it up. I don't give a crap. I just think that this is two super egos, and one's based on his career accomplishments and the other's based on his legacy from his father that just need to zip it, and listen, if you don't want to hug somebody.
Yeah, I say don't go out 50-yard line. Don't
well,
bother.
Well, and again, in Eddie Robinson Jr.'s defense, he went out to shake his hand. That doesn't mean you have to hug.
No, he doesn't have to hug.
Well, Deion's a hugger, man.
Yeah,
Deion hugs. Yeah. And he's not like a big hugger, but he's a hugger. He'll be like, bring it in and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay. But I would love to hug Deion. I have hugged Deion. I'm hugging the best cornerback to ever live.
Yes.
So that's cool, But to Eddie Robinson Jr., it's not. So we got only a few minutes. I want to get your predictions, because we got 3 huge, massive games this weekend, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
And I'm going to do it with win-loss, but I'm also going to do it with the spread, just because that's fun. Because the spread is all that matters in life when it comes to making money. All right. Penn State, Michigan, 2 undefeated teams. You got 5-0 Penn State, number 10 in the country, at 6-0 Michigan. Who wins the game first of all?
Michigan.
Okay. And why?
I just think the quarterback that he has now is able to do a lot of different things that'll be a problem for Penn State. And I think Penn State is good but ordinary as per normal. The only question mark is that sometimes Penn State does win some of these games that I'm like, I don't think they're going to win, and somehow they win them. That's the only question mark to me. On paper, to me, Michigan, the running back is awesome.
Yep.
He's awesome.
I'll go the opposite of you though here. Yeah. Sometimes Michigan loses a game that they shouldn't win, and I scratch my head. I'm not picking Penn State. Michigan's a 7-point favorite. Couldn't be a worse line. Do they cover? I mean, you think they're going to win? Did they win by a touchdown or by a field goal or somewhere in between?
I think they'll cover that.
Okay. So that's an intriguing one. They didn't look that great against Indiana. They didn't look that great against Maryland. They won both those football games. Harbaugh's offense is predictable because it's his offense. I don't care if it's Josh Gaddis or the new coordinators. It's his offense.
True.
It's boring. It's predictable. Joe Klatt even pointed it out last week, and I think he did it by mistake because now he's going to have to deal with, Harbaugh bitching at him. But he said they motion, they run. They pass, there's no motion, which is the opposite of what you want to do. Passing situations, you want to motion, get those defensive backs confused or moving around and stuff like that. And I looked at it and we were watching the game and it's like, wow, he's right. They motion, they're going to run. So the tendencies are there. You could pick up on them. I know Penn State's watching that too. I would agree with you. I think Michigan should win this football game. Okay. Now let's get to another biggie, but not the biggie. Oklahoma State, TCU. So it's at TCU. TCU is 5-0. Oklahoma State's 5-0. TCU is favored by 3.5 points at home. Oklahoma State's number 8 in the country. TCU is number 13 in the country. Who's winning this football game?
I watched TCU Kansas. So it just happened to let me watch those 2 undefeated last week. Kansas lost its starting quarterback in that game.
Yep,
and the other guy wasn't bad. But TCU was just piling on the points. It didn't look like Kansas really had the guys defensively to be able to even though somehow they almost pulled out the game. I think TCU is going to have a hard time on defense. They didn't seem to have that much on D. Kansas, when I was watching it, I watched that whole game. TCO scored so easily against Kansas. I just thought, but Kansas was able to just come right back and score on them with no problem with the backup quarterback. And they threw a pick to a pick that went to the house, I think, too, at one point. So the quarterback was throwing all over them, even though he had one big mistake or whatever. So it was, I think, to me, Oklahoma State, in this situation is probably a little bit better. What is it? 3? Well, I guess if they're under, then it's just
Oklahoma State. Yeah. I mean, if you're picking Oklahoma State, you're getting 3.5. So you're Oklahoma State and taking the 3.5 points. I agree with you. I think Oklahoma State. Sonny Dykes has done a great job at TCU. Mike Gundy does not get the respect that he deserves as a great coach. I mean, he's consistently, the team's always in there for 10 wins. If bad season's like 9. The guy coaches, Spencer Sanders, is he's emerging as an excellent quarterback. They have weapons. TCU's they got some weapons too. I mean, Duggan's playing very well. Quentin Johnston, 14 catches, 200 yards. I mean, just couldn't be stopped. Miller, the running back, is really good too. I'm still going to say Oklahoma State is at the coaching. I think he's a better coach. Now, it's on the road, but I'll take the 3.5 and I'll go Oklahoma State. So we agree on that one. And then the biggie, the final, Alabama, Tennessee. Alabama is number 3 in the country, at Tennessee, number 6 in the country. Both teams undefeated. Alabama is favored by 7.5 on the road. We don't know if Bryce Young is going to play. Jalen Milroe obviously struggled a bit as a passer and fumbled a couple times against Texas A&M. Who you got?
I guess a lot of it depends on. I thought Bryce Young was going to come back last week. They said he was proved to come back, but they didn't come back. So I'm certain he will be back this week, unless it really is a bad injury. Which
now it's his throwing shoulder, so it's an AC joint throwing shoulder, so it's a pain thing. It's not he can make it worse. It's just a pain management type of thing.
Okay. I love Tennessee's quarterback. I love him. That's Hooker, right?
And then Hooker.
I watched it. I watched a couple of games. I'll tell you, Alabama did not look that great against Texas A&M, who I don't think is that great. So I guess I'll go out on a limb. What do I got to lose? I'm going to go with the upset.
You're going the upset, and you're obviously going to take Tennessee to get the 7.5 points at home. So that's. I mean, I always come down to the common denominator that I used to a long time ago bet against Alabama here and there, and every time I did, I lost. So I'm always betting Nick Saban. I'm going to lay the 7.5, and I think Alabama is going to win that game by more than 7.5. Could be a 10-point game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. We expected a blowout against A&M. Didn't happen. The receivers at Alabama don't look that great. The offensive line has some question marks. Milroe is not an accomplished passer. He's also, got to work on ball security as a runner. But I'm going to take Alabama just because Tennessee is still new to this game of being great. They used to be great 100 years ago, but winning is new to them still. So I'm going to take Alabama there. Those are the big matchups. Unfortunately, I got to run because I'm so freaking popular. It's horrible. So at myfootballcamps.com/D1 I'm talking to a few parents, and this is the thing that kind of warms my heart a little bit. Some people don't have the finances to pay for this, and I get it. Okay. And I'm never going to ask anybody to break the bank to do anything like that. What warms my heart is when these kids, we talk to the kids and then they go to their parents and they ask their parents and their parents say yes, because their parents, and the Enlow family is a great example of this. They want the best for their kids. They just do. And there's really no question of yes or no. It's just always yes. And to me, it's great because, obviously we get a sale and it's money for us and we get to promote the kid, and it's a win-win in every way because we get to look at the kid and watch him develop and put him out there to coaches. whether the coaches like them or not, that's a different story. That's not our job, but we get to promote them and put them out there and get to know their stories a little bit better. And obviously it's a business, so it's always good to get a sale. But to me, it kind of warms my heart when I talk to a kid. He goes back, let me talk to my mom, let me talk to my dad. And they come back and said, we're in. Because I don't have kids. You do. But I have friends who have kids. And I know they would do anything for their kids. Anything. Even if they know that their kid is not the level of football they wants to play at. Even if they know that their kid is an FCS level football player, but he wants to give it a shot and see if there's, Power 5, Group of 5 schools that are interested. It warms my heart because as a kid, I never had that. I would never, ever, ever in a million years get supported by my parents financially for any dream I ever had, football included. So when I see this, it just it makes me want to work a little harder for them too.
Yep.
And I really think it's a tremendous, tremendous show of love and support for your kid in a troubling time in the world. I mean, I don't know if it's true that Biden said that we're heading towards a nuclear war. I don't know. Yep. Did he say that?
Well, he had made a statement on it, backtracked off of it.
Okay.
I mean, that's a whole different.
It scares the crap out of young
everybody.
Kids. Well, everybody, but the younger you are,
especially
in your 20s, you're scared. In your teens, you're scared. You're like, oh my gosh, I remember growing up, and it was like the Cold War.
Yep.
And we were doing nuclear bomb. Get under your
desk.
Like that's going to stop you from melting your face off. But it was a little bit scary. It's like, oh my gosh, Khrushchev and Reagan, and are we going to blow up? It was a troubling time, and he didn't need that. And these kids are dealing with a lot. Not only this, but there's so many mental health issues out there. There's so many people doing this, that, and the other. And there's an anti-bullying, as you know, as a father, which is hilarious to me because the kids online anonymously are the worst human beings ever when it comes to bullying people.
Correct.
But then in school, they'll say, we don't bully anybody, and that's wrong. So they're such hypocrites. So kids are getting hit with a lot.
They are.
And so for me to see a parent come up and just say, listen, I got your back. I'm going to do this. It's going to make you happy. We're going to do everything. It kind of warms my heart a little bit. And that's a part that I think I kind of noticed over the last couple of weeks, that the parents are supporting their kids. And I really do like that part of this business.
You're going to give them the very best chance. That's the thing. Nobody can predict the future, but you're going to give them the best chance for them to have success. And then at the end of the day, you say, hey, we did everything we could. And you usually, you fall where you will if you do all that. And I think that's the great thing that these parents are. They're willing to do that for their kids. That's a great, great thing. And so, it does make it a lot more fun. I love tracking them. It's like you said it last week. I think you are invested. Like when a new highlight comes out, even if I don't have a clip to do on them for a while, like I want to see that new highlight because I want to see how they're progressing each week. So that part's really cool. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, I went long too, so let's wrap it up. We'll be back next Monday, hopefully at our normal time at 12. I don't know. I'm the one who moves around a lot. And then you and I will talk offline about a few other things. So thank you for attending. And do you have outro music or do we just end?
Well, I'll outro it right now. See you next week.